Suffolk, home of Ipswich Town, Ed Sheeran and pretty villages. This county was the birthplace of England, but has since descended into irrelevance in the past 500 years.
For that, we need to delve into its past, from its Anglo-Saxon origins to the iconic landmarks of now.
And of 21st century tourism putting Suffolk back on the map, I'll be looking at what makes this county so special now, exploring Suffolk, both past and present.
This is Silly Suffolk, a common nickname used to describe the county. But what does silly mean? Well, it means seely, silly. But what does seely mean? Well, it means holy, referring to the amount of churches in the county. But why are there so many churches? Why did Suffolk get rich? Why did Suffolk get poor? Why do I exist? Some of these questions will be answered in this documentary.
Suffolk, a notoriously flat county. What's this doing here?
Actually, Suffolk has a large number of valleys, carved out by retreating glaciers during the Ice Age. The retreating glaciers made the region highly fertile, perfect for human habitation. A knapped flint tool, formerly used by the Paleolithic people of Suffolk, this one, found here in Harksted on the Shotley Peninsula, is one of many found in the area, suggesting a significant settlement here, now lost to time. Little is known about the Bronze Age people of Suffolk except their mounds. This one is one of a chain running from Martlesham to Ipswich, a set of tumuli. They are in fact the earliest man-made features in Suffolk. Seven Hills Crematorium in Ipswich is named after a chain of 7 tumuli in the woods off Nacton Road in Ipswich, but there are in fact many more. The Bronze Age must have been a prosperous time for Suffolk, given the amount of finds found from the era. But not for long. It was out of the old and in with the hip new ore, iron. Very little is known about what happened to the tribes here. We do know in fact they did trade around as gold torcs have been found, near to the source of a spring which feeds into the Belstead Brook. It was presumably an important meeting place. But what is the site like now? Really? By the year 0, this island we call our home was inhabited by people known as the Britons. In East Anglia, to the north, the Iceni tribe, and to the south, the Trinovantes. This was the birth of Suffolk's insecurities as to whether more closely identify itself with its southern neighbours in Essex or its northern ones in Norfolk. These people were relatively primitive, especially compared to what was to come. In mainland Europe, an empire was brewing, an army and civilization more advanced than the Britons could have ever imagined, the Romans. In the year AD 43, the Romans brought with them massive grey elephants terrifying the Britons. They urbanised the island with great speed, building huge stretches of road between their settlements. The Roman roads can still be seen today, characterised by their straightness. In fact, the Roman roads were the only roads that were paved with stone until the 1700s. Coddenham was the largest Roman settlement in Suffolk, an outpost of the great Roman capital of Colchester to the south. It was home to a fort, now under Balaam Rarebreed's house, to defend against the Britons. The Britons continued to revolt, led by Queen Boudica. They marched to Colchester, where they forced the inhabitants into the Temple of Claudius and burnt them alive. However, this part of history is connected to Essex, so we don't really care. But not everything was rosy. The Anglo-Saxons said Suffolk looked cosy. The Romans said, no, don't be so nosy. But the Anglo-Saxons said, Rome is collapsing, mate. Jog on. And so they did, in AD 410. Germanic tribes from South Scandinavia began to settle in this region, the largest of which, the Angles, became so prevalent on the island that the island became Angleland, or England. The North folk of these Angles became Norfolk, and the South folk became Suffolk! And that was the birth of our county. The subsequent period was called the Dark Ages, as society moved from Roman villas back into straw huts. Poo was left on the ground, and the Anglo-Saxons brought a return of mounds. This is Sutton Hoo, the likely burial site of the Anglo-Saxon king Raedwald in the year 624. The site overlooks the highway of the Germanic invaders, the River Deben. The mound, the helmet and its treasure were found in the mound over there by Basil Brown, shortly before the Second World War. The Angles liked their rivers, but they also liked their religion. Several monasteries were built around the county, often overlooking the river estuaries, out in the open, for all to see. Probably not the best idea. The Vikings saw Suffolk and thought, yeah, I'd quite like to burn, rape and pillage that. And so they did. And the monasteries disappeared. The Vikings didn't stop there. They continued to rampage the whole of England under King Guthrum of the Danes. The whole area north of the Thames was given to Guthrum under the Danelaw. However, King of Wessex Alfred the Great would attempt an attack on Guthrum's fleet in 885 at Bloody Point in Shotley, named so after the battle that took place here. Guthrum was buried in Headledge in the year 890, now commonly identified with the town of Hadley, in St Mary's Church, on this spot. The Anglo-Saxons eventually regained control under King Aethelstan in the year 927. Here, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were united into a single England. Stability didn't last, however, as his successor, Ethelred the Unready, was clearly unready to be king, as he immediately lost England to the Danish king Canute. Edward the Confessor succeeded him, and is famous for the mighty achievement of causing the most famous power struggle of all time in 1066, just by kicking the bucket. We all know what happened in 1066. The Normans eventually took over and forced the people to say things like mutton instead of sheep, and built huge great castles like this massive one in Framlingham that Ed Sheeran sung about. After a few sieges here and there, Magna Carta this and Robin Hood that, medieval England was born. Huge towns like Dunwich popped up, being extremely wealthy and populous. Surely this would last forever. This is Dunwich, renowned as Britain's Atlantis. It was once the third largest town in England, third only to London and Bristol, but has now been lost to sea erosion. This was one of the main lanes in Dunwich, but now it's a nothing, leading to nothing. As the Pope wouldn't allow Henry VIII to have a divorce, he converted the entire of England to Protestantism and destroyed the foundation of English welfare, the monasteries. Suffolk's cloth and wool trade was booming. Rich timber buildings lined the streets of some of the most populous settlements in England, although Suffolk's glory left as soon as it came. These timber buildings, although posh in the 1500s, are only still here because no one could afford to replace them. In other words, Suffolk became skint. As Suffolk became poor, many migrated to Australia and the US, hence the similarity between the Australian and Boston accents to the Suffolk accent. Poverty saw a rise in crime and deviance, and therefore smuggling. Tea and alcohol was smuggled in and around Suffolk in local inns, hence the term smuggler's pub. The 1800s saw the Industrial Revolution, where Ipswich became Suffolk's centre town. Although industry has largely died in the region and been replaced by retail, we're still blessed by architectural gems. Which takes us up to the 20th century, where we of course have to mention the great sacrifices made by the Suffolk Regiment during the First and Second World Wars. And of course, how can we talk about Ipswich without mentioning the superb contributions made by Sir Bobby Robson and Sir Alfred Ramsey to the world of football?
And that takes us up to the modern day. But what is modern Suffolk like? Well, in recent years, Suffolk has seen itself more in the limelight than ever before. With singer-songwriter Ed Sheeran being famously from Framlingham, and his #1 Castle on the Hill actually being about Framlingham Castle, Suffolk has finally found itself being noticed by the entire world. Suffolk's also seen some cinematic representation recently, with films like Richard Curtis's Yesterday, which had bits shot at the Ramshot Arms, a pub also on the River Deben.
There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday came suddenly. Why she?
And of course, more recently, Netflix's The Dig, which is about Basil Brown's finds here at Sutton Hoo.
It occurs to me that you might unearth human remains.
Yeah, that's possible.
We're digging down to meet the dead. Disinterring them, in fact.
Well, there's always coroner's inquests when remains are found.
But Ed Sheeran isn't the only thing Framlingham has to offer. A lot of the BBC show Detectorists was filmed in this small town.
Hi mate, if you get this, just wondered if you're coming down the club for this open day thing. You're not serious about giving up, are you? Give us a call. Cheers.
You walking home?
Peter's give me a lift.
You live down the road.
So what do you think about Suffolk?
Oh, Suffolk's fabulous. Yeah, it's got everything you could possibly want. Lovely countryside, lovely. The coast, which we're at today, is absolutely stunning. So much history and beauty, and we really, really love living here.
It seems this coastal county is becoming more and more well known, but the movies aren't all it's known for. Deep American and Australian accents actually derive from Suffolk colonists moving in. Michael Connor Humphreys, the boy who played young Forrest Gump, had a thick Mississippi accent, which uncoincidentally sounds very similar to the folk of our here East Anglian county. Tom Hanks famously based the now iconic Forrest Gump voice on the young boy's accent, meaning that Forrest Gump is actually a rooted tractor boy. Much of New England folk could walk into East Anglia and sound like a local. We've been lucky enough to have the chance to talk to Peter Cutts, a well-known photographer, metal detectorist, driving instructor, motocross champion, windsurfer champion, and Suffolk extraordinaire.
Well, you're clearly a large advocate for everything Suffolk, aren't you, Peter?
Oh yes, I've lived in Suffolk all my life. Born in Suffolk, lived in Suffolk, worked in Suffolk, never gone anywhere else but Suffolk, and no need to go anywhere else. Suffolk's a lovely place. I know all about Suffolk. I've got all the information you need to know. Anything you ask me anything about Suffolk, and I'll tell you the answer. I know all about Suffolk.
Well, in that case, whenabouts was Ipswich established?
Well, that's always been there, isn't it? Ipswich is over there. Ipswich, when was it? When was it what?
So you actually, like in real life, why you love Suffolk?
I just love Suffolk. I've lived in Suffolk all my life. It's a beautiful place. I've travelled all over the world, and always lovely to come back to Suffolk. And
What particular part of history are you most fascinated by in Suffolk?
history. I like the old medieval times, the way the old farms were years ago. The nice, simple, quiet, slow pace of life on the farms in Suffolk. See the old binders and the old thrashing machines and all the old boys working on the fields. Down the pub, they have a few beers, simple old life, innit?
That's brilliant. Well, you're a keen metal detector, and I thought I'd ask you, what sort of things have you found?
In Suffolk, I've found, at metal detector, I've found quite a bit of history in Suffolk. I've found Roman coins, Roman gold rings. I've found, what else have I found? Medieval rings, loads of Victorian coins. They seem to chuck the money about rather a lot in Victorian times, and stuff like that, really.
As well as being a motocross and windsurfing champion, you're also a keen photographer. You must love Suffolk views, and I thought I'd ask, what is your favourite Suffolk view?
My favourite Suffolk view would be, let's try to think now. I like the old churches, I like the old castles, and I just like little valleys and things like that. You know, like
Any place in mind?
Yeah, one of my favourite spots would be the Shelley Valley. You know, the Shelley. There's no
The Brett Valley.
The Brett Valley, is it Shelley? Yeah, all down there. Solly's Hill, down that way. You've got lovely little valleys, rivers, lakes. Beautiful, beautiful.
What do you think about Suffolk in the modern day?
That's all right, nothing too bad. That's a bit bloody rushing about and hurtling about here, there, and everywhere, don't they? Keep chasing about up and down that bloody A12, don't they? Keep carting stuff here, carting stuff there. Years ago, everything was in the village, wasn't it? You had your tailor shop, your butcher shop, and the old boy mended the shoes, and whatever you wanted, you went down the street and got it, didn't you? And that was about it. But now they cart it all over the country, don't they? They cart new shoes off bloody up west of the country. They bring it all the way back again, burn all the diesel waste and all the fuel. And you didn't need all that, did you? You had it all in the village, in the town, didn't you? And that was it. You had everything you wanted in the town. No need to keep travelling about everywhere, was there?
No, of course not. Well, I'm trying to leave this interview on a positive note.
I thought I was very positive. I don't know what to say positive about. A lovely old country, everything is good, everybody's happy.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right, mate, no problem at all.
Well then, that just about wraps up our search for Suffolk secrets. Hopefully this will shine a light on just what this county has to offer, both now
And in the centuries before us. Hopefully something's been learned about its rich heritage.
This has been Harrison and Alfie showing you silly Suffolk, past and present.
Hell yeah.